The night was silent. Only the rustling of alien trees filled the air. A lone human traveler walked through the forest, his boots crunching against strange glowing moss. His name was Daniel, a wanderer, a fighter. A man who carried scars of many battles. He thought this night would be like any other. But destiny was waiting for him. As Daniel stepped deeper into the forest, he heard a low growl. It was not the sound of a small predator, but a deep, broken cry that sent shivers down his spine. He gripped the handle of his blade, ready for danger. Through the shadows, his eyes caught sight of a creature chained to a stone pillar. The beast was massive, its body covered in black fur that shimmered under the alien moonlight. Its fangs glistened, but its golden eyes did not shine with rage. Instead, they burned with sorrow. Daniel stood still, torn between caution and curiosity. The locals had warned him never to walk this path, saying it was cursed. Yet, here he was. Face to face with the very curse they spoke of, the beast snarled weakly, tugging at the glowing chains that held it. Down every pull sent sparks of energy cracking through its body. Daniel saw scars where the chains had burned into its skin. This was not the wild fury of a monster. This was suffering. For a moment, Daniel almost turned away. It was not his fight, not his burden, but something inside him refused to leave. The beast's golden eyes locked with his, and in them, he saw something impossible. Not hatred, not madness, but a silent plea for help. His heart pounded. Could he trust those eyes, or was this a trick? He took one step closer, and the beast did not lunge. Instead, it lowered its head, as if surrendering. The chains rattled, heavy and cruel. Who would do this to such a creature, and why? Daniel whispered to himself, "You're no beast." He knelt beside the chained figure, inspecting the metal. The glowing links pulsed like veins, alive with alien energy. No ordinary tool could break this. Still, Daniel drew his blade, its edge gleaming. The beast let out a soft growl, not of anger, but of fear, as if it had been hurt too many times before. Daniel hesitated. Was he freeing a monster that would kill him, or was he saving something no one else dared to save? The weight of the decision pressed heavy on his chest, but he could not ignore the fire in those golden eyes. With a deep breath, he swung his blade against the chains. The first strike sent a shockwave through the ground. The chain cracked, but did not break. The beast cried out, its voice filled with both pain and hope. Daniel gritted his teeth and struck again and again. Finally, one chain shattered, bursting into sparks of light. The creature stumbled. Still bound by the remaining chains, Daniel rushed to free the others. Every swing of his blade drained his strength, but he did not stop. At last, the final chain split open, and silence fell. The beast collapsed to the ground, breathing hard. Daniel stepped back, his chest heaving, blade still in his hand. He expected the beast to attack, to roar, to strike. Instead, it trembled, shrinking in on itself. Its body began to glow, the black fur fading, the massive shape twisting. Daniel's eyes widened, his breath caught in his throat. The beast was not a beast at all. Before his eyes, the monstrous form dissolved. And there, lying weak and fragile, was a young alien girl. Her silver hair spilled across the moss. Her skin pale and marked with scars where the chains had burned her. Her golden eyes were the same, but now filled with tears. She looked at him, lips trembling, and whispered a single word, "Please." Daniel froze, his blade slipping slightly in his grip. All this time, he thought he was saving a beast. But he had saved something else entirely. A girl, cursed and chained, hidden behind a monstrous disguise. Questions raced through his mind. Who had done this to her, and why? And most of all, what had he just unleashed? The forest grew colder. Shadows deepened. Somewhere in the distance, he heard the sound of footsteps. Hunters, or something worse, were coming. Daniel realized his choice had already bound him to this girl's fate. The night would no longer be silent. It had only just begun. Daniel stood frozen, his blade still in hand, staring at the girl who only moments ago had been a chained beast. Her silver hair gleamed faintly under the alien moon, her skin bruised and scarred from the burning chains. She looked so fragile, so weak, yet Daniel could not forget the towering monster he had seen only moments before. The forest around them whispered with strange sounds, but his eyes were locked on her. The girl tried to rise, but her legs trembled and she fell back into the moss. Daniel knelt beside her, unsure whether to help or to step away. "Who are you?" he whispered, his voice low. The girl's golden eyes shimmered with tears, and she shook her head. "Not beast, not curse. Please help me," she murmured in a broken voice. Her words struck him like an arrow, and though he had many questions, he could not leave her like this. Daniel slid his blade back into its sheath and reached out his hand. The girl hesitated, her eyes flicking to his rough, scarred fingers. Slowly, she placed her hand in his, her skin cold and trembling. He pulled her gently to sit upright, and for the first time, she looked at him without fear. But before he could ask more, the sound of branches snapping echoed through the trees. Voices carried in the night air, harsh and sharp. They freed her. A voice growled, "Find them before the curse spreads." Daniel's heart tightened. Danger was closer than he expected. The girl's grip on his hand tightened, her nails digging into his skin. "Don't let them take me," she whispered, her voice breaking with terror. Daniel scanned the shadows. Glowing lanterns flickered in the distance. Hunters moving fast. He had no plan, no allies. Just his strength and the weak girl beside him. "Why are they hunting you?" he asked quickly. The girl shook her head, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Because I lived, because I am the truth they fear," she whispered, but offered no more. Her words only deepened the mystery, but there was no time to ask further. Daniel lifted her into his arms, her light frame surprising him. She leaned against his chest, her breathing soft and shallow. The hunters were getting closer. The forest, alive with their shouts, Daniel ran, his boots striking the mossy ground, his heart racing faster than ever. The girl buried her face against him, trembling as though every step tore her apart. Branches whipped against his arms. The forest seemed endless. But Daniel pushed forward, guided only by instinct. The girl whispered something, words in a language he did not understand. Her voice was faint, but the air around them shifted. For a moment, the glowing moss dimmed, as if hiding them from sight. Daniel slowed. Shocked by the strange change, the girl looked at him with tired eyes. "I can help." "But not yet," she said weakly. Whatever power she had, it was not fully awakened. They came to a clearing, moonlight spilling over ancient stones. Daniel set her down carefully, his chest burning from the run. The girl looked around, her golden eyes scanning the ruins. "This place. Safe, for a moment," she said, though her voice trembled. Daniel crouched beside her. "You're no beast." "So why did they chain you?" he demanded. She closed her eyes, her silver hair falling over her face. "They called me cursed. They called me monster," she whispered. "But the truth, I was hidden, changed, because I was too dangerous to them." Daniel frowned, his mind a storm of questions. "Too dangerous," he repeated. "To who?" The girl opened her eyes, glowing softly in the dark. "To my own people," she whispered. Daniel felt a chill run through his body. Her words carried both sorrow and truth. Her people had cursed her, chained her, left her to rot as a beast. But why? What secret could make them betray one of their own? The girl reached out, her hand trembling as it brushed against his. "You freed me," she said softly. "No one else would have dared." Her words stirred something deep inside him. He was a soldier, a wanderer, but never before had someone looked at him with such fragile trust. And yet, behind her gratitude, he felt there was something more, a shadow she was not telling. The sound of distant horns broke the moment. Daniel's eyes snapped toward the forest. The hunters were not far. The girl gasped, fear flashing across her face. "They will not stop," she said. "They will never stop until I am dead." Daniel's jaw tightened. The weight of his choice pressed harder than before. He could leave her, let the hunters take her, walk away and save himself. But when he looked into her golden eyes, broken yet burning with desperate life, he knew he could not. He rose, pulling her gently back into his arms. "You'll have to trust me," he said firmly. She nodded faintly. Too weak to argue, Daniel turned and vanished back into the forest shadows. The hunters' voices grew louder, their footsteps closing in. The night was alive with pursuit, but Daniel would not stop. As the trees swallowed them again, the girl whispered one final warning into his ear. "If they catch me, they will kill you too." Her words chilled his blood. But he did not slow. Somehow, Daniel knew this was only the beginning. He had freed her. And now, the weight of that choice would follow him through fire and blood. The forest stretched endlessly. The hunters closing in, the beast in chains was no more. But the secret he carried now was far more dangerous and far more beautiful. The forest was no longer silent. Drums of pursuit echoed through the night. Carried on the wind, Daniel pushed forward, carrying the weak alien girl in his arms, his muscles aching, but his will unbroken. Her breath was shallow against his chest, yet her golden eyes stayed open, flickering with fear. Behind them, the hunters moved swiftly, their lanterns glowing like fiery stars among the trees. Daniel had been chased before, hunted by beasts and men alike. But this was different. The hunters were not just after him. They wanted her, and they would stop at nothing. Every cry of their horns grew louder. Every step closer, Daniel felt the girl tighten her hold on him, her nails digging into his shirt as though she feared he would let her go. "Don't let them take me," she whispered again, her voice trembling. Daniel's jaw hardened. "I won't," he answered firmly. Though his heart raced with doubt, the forest thinned, opening into rocky ground lit by the pale alien moon. Daniel set the girl down for a moment, his chest heaving from the run. Her legs shook as she tried to stand, but she collapsed back onto the stone. She looked at him with eyes full of sorrow. "You should leave me," she said softly. "They will kill you if you stay." Daniel shook his head. "I didn't save you to abandon you," he replied, his voice sharp with conviction. For a brief moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of distant hunters. Then a sharp whistle cut through the night. A glowing spear shot through the trees, striking the ground beside Daniel. It pulsed with alien energy, sending cracks of light across the stones. The hunters had found them, their figures emerging from the darkness. Armored and armed with weapons of pure energy, Daniel drew his blade, its steel dull compared to their glowing arms. But his grip was steady. He stepped forward, shielding the girl behind him. The hunters surrounded the clearing, their eyes glowing under their helmets. One of them pointed at the girl, his voice booming. "Return the cursed one, human. She does not belong to you." Daniel's lips curled into a grim smile. "Then she belongs to no one," he answered. The hunter snarled, raising his weapon. "Fool, you do not know what she is." Daniel's heart pounded, but he did not waver. "I don't care what she is. She asked me for help, and I gave it." The hunters lunged, and the battle began. Daniel swung his blade, steel clashing against glowing metal, sparks flying. He moved fast, his body remembering every battle he had ever fought. But these enemies were strong, their weapons humming. With deadly power, one struck him across the chest, sending pain ripping through his ribs. Daniel staggered but did not fall, his will keeping him upright. The girl cried out, reaching her hand toward him. For a moment, her golden eyes flared. With strange light, the ground beneath the hunters cracked. The moss withering in a circle around her, a wave of energy pulsed outward, forcing the hunters to step back. Daniel glanced at her in shock. "What did you do?" he gasped. The girl shook her head, sweat dripping down her pale face. "Not enough," she whispered, her body trembling. The hunters regrouped quickly, their leader raising a glowing chain. "Cursed one," he shouted. "Your power will never return. Submit and die with honor." The girl's lips trembled, but Daniel stepped in front of her again. "Over my dead body," he growled. Gripping his blade tighter, the hunters attacked. Once more, surrounding him from every side, Daniel fought like a cornered wolf, his blade moving with fury, his body bleeding but unbroken. One hunter lunged at the girl, his chain whipping forward. She screamed, but Daniel spun and slashed through. The weapon, breaking it apart with a roar, the hunter fell back. Stunned by the human strength, Daniel stood over the girl, his chest heaving, his blade dripping with blood and sparks of broken energy. The hunters hesitated, whispering among themselves. "He fights like no human. What is he?" The girl looked up at him, her golden eyes wide. "You risk everything for me," she said weakly. Daniel nodded, his breath ragged. "I said I wouldn't let them take you." For the first time, a faint smile touched her lips, fragile but real. The hunters grew restless, their leader raising his weapon again. "This ends now," he snarled, his voice echoing across the clearing, but before the strike could fall. The girl's eyes burned bright with golden fire. The air shimmered. The broken chains on the ground pulsed with light. Her body glowed faintly, as if her hidden strength was beginning to awaken. The hunters stepped back, fear flickering in their voices. "She's breaking the curse," one whispered. Daniel looked at her, stunned, as the weak alien girl he had saved now seemed to shine with untapped power. She swayed, her body too frail to control the energy. Daniel caught her before she fell. Holding her close, her whisper brushed against his ear. "I'm not a beast. I'm not a curse. I am more." The hunters froze, unsure whether to attack or flee. And in that tense silence, Daniel knew the war for her life, and his, was only beginning. The shadows of the forest closed in. But this time, Daniel was no longer just running. He was standing against the darkness itself. The clearing smelled of smoke and blood. The hunters stood frozen, watching the faint glow in the alien girl's body. Her golden eyes shone like small suns, yet her frail frame trembled as if every breath was a battle. Daniel held her close, his blade still ready. His chest heaving with exhaustion, the hunters whispered among themselves, fear lacing their voices, but none dared to step forward. Then, as if on some silent command, the hunters withdrew into the shadows of the trees. Their leader's voice echoed through the night. "Run, human, but know this: the curse will consume you both." With that, they vanished, leaving only the sound of distant horns in the forest. Daniel did not believe for a moment that they had given up. They were retreating only to prepare for another strike. The girl sagged in his arms, her glow fading. Quickly, her head rested against his chest, her voice faint but urgent. "We cannot stay here," she whispered. "They will come again." Daniel nodded, tightening his grip around her. His body screamed with pain from the battle, yet his will burned brighter. He would not leave her, not now, not ever. The forest stretched endlessly. But Daniel knew he had to keep moving. He carried her across the rocky ground, a key into the deeper wilds where the trees grew thicker and stranger. The moss glowed under his boots, casting eerie light over twisted roots and silent rivers. Every sound of the night made him tense. Every shadow seemed to watch him. The girl stirred weakly in his arms, her eyes opening just enough to guide him. "There is a place," she murmured, "an old temple. Hidden in the mountains, it will protect us." Daniel looked down at her, suspicion mixed with trust. "What kind of temple?" he asked. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "One built for me," she whispered before drifting back into silence. Hours passed, the night stretching into endless darkness. Daniel's muscles ached, his wounds stung, yet he pressed forward. He could not shake the image of the hunter's glowing weapons, nor the power that had burst from the girl. Who was she truly? And why did her own people call her cursed? Every answer only seemed to open more questions. By dawn, the forest gave way to towering cliffs, their jagged peaks piercing the alien sky. At the base of the mountains lay broken statues, half buried in vines, their faces worn but regal. The girl stirred again, her golden eyes flickering awake. "This is it," she whispered, pointing with a trembling hand. Daniel followed her gesture, his gaze landing on a narrow path leading into the cliffs. The stone steps were cracked and overgrown, yet they pulsed faintly with the same golden light as her eyes. Daniel carried her up the path, each step heavy but determined. The air grew colder, the wind sharper, as though the mountain itself watched them. At the end of the path stood an ancient temple, its doors carved with symbols that glowed faintly as they approached. The girl's breath caught, tears shimmering in her eyes. "I never thought I'd see it again," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel looked at her curiously. "This temple, it belonged to you?" She nodded faintly. "To my family, to my bloodline." He pushed the heavy doors open, the sound echoing through the hollow halls. Inside, the temple was filled with tall pillars, their surfaces carved with scenes of battles and crowns. Golden light shimmered from crystal orbs embedded in the walls. Faint but alive, Daniel set the girl down gently on a stone bench. She touched one of the glowing carvings, her fingers tracing the lines with trembling reverence. "This was my home," she whispered. "Before the curse, before the chains." Daniel crouched in front of her, his eyes steady. "You need to tell me the truth," he said. "Why do they hunt you? Why call you cursed?" The girl closed her eyes, her breath heavy when she spoke. Her words carried both sorrow and fire. "I was born to rule," she said. "I was heir to the throne of this world, but those who feared me sought to erase me." Daniel's eyes widened, the weight of her words crashing down on him. "You're a princess," he whispered. She nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. "A princess turned into a beast, so no one would ever follow me." Silence hung in the air, broken only by the distant wind through the temple halls. Daniel stared at her, torn between disbelief and awe. She was no helpless wanderer. She was royalty, chained and cursed by her own people. Her golden eyes met his, burning with quiet defiance. "They wanted me forgotten, but you broke the chains. And now the curse begins to unravel." Before Daniel could respond, the temple shook with a sudden rumble. The girl gasped, clutching his arm. "They've found us." Through the open doors, Daniel saw torches and lanterns flickering in the distance, moving quickly up the mountain path. The hunters were coming, and this time, they would not retreat. Daniel rose, gripping his blade, his body battered, but his spirit burning. He glanced back at the girl, her eyes filled with both fear and pride. "Stay behind me," he said firmly. The hunters' horns blared outside, the temple walls trembling with their approach. Daniel knew the fight ahead would decide more than their survival. It would decide the fate of the princess herself. The unknown stretched before them, dark and dangerous, but Daniel was ready to step into it, blade in hand, the princess at his side. The temple walls shook as the hunter's horns echoed in the mountains. Daniel stood with his blade ready, his chest rising and falling with steady breaths behind him. The alien girl sat weakly on the stone bench, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She looked small, almost fragile. But the air around her carried something heavy, something ancient. Daniel turned to her urgency in his voice. "They're coming again," he said. "I need to know the truth now. All of it." The girl closed her eyes as if fighting a war. Inside her own heart, when she spoke, her voice trembled but grew stronger with each word. "My name is Soraya," she whispered. "I was not just any child. I was born as the chosen heir. My blood carried the ancient bond to the throne. To the power of this world." Daniel frowned, his grip on his blade tightening. "Then why would they curse you? Why call you beast?" Soraya's eyes filled with sorrow, and she looked down at the glowing carvings on the temple walls. "Because they feared me," she said softly. "My gift was too strong. Even as a child, I commanded light when others could not." Her fingers traced a symbol of a crown etched into the stone, her golden eyes shimmering with painful memory. "The Council of Elders decided no one should follow me. They whispered lies, called me dangerous, said I would bring ruin, and when my parents refused to give me up, they killed them." Her voice broke, a tear sliding down her pale cheek. Daniel's jaw clenched, fury burning in his chest. "They murdered your family," he said, his voice low and sharp. Soraya nodded, her shoulders trembling. "They took me, bound me in chains forged with cursed energy, twisted my form into a beast so all would hate me, so no one would remember me as princess." The words hung heavy in the air, the truth cutting deeper than any blade. Daniel stared at her, his heart thundering with anger and pity. He thought of the sorrow in her golden eyes when he first found her, chained like an animal, and now he knew why. She had been betrayed, not by enemies, but by her own people. Soraya lifted her head, her voice trembling but fierce. "For years, I lived in darkness, chained and forgotten, my voice unheard, my face hidden. I was nothing but a beast in their stories." Her hands curled into fists, her golden eyes blazing with both pain and fire. "But when you cut the chains, something broke. The curse began to crack. I felt it." She placed her hand over her chest, where faint golden light still pulsed beneath her skin. "You gave me more than freedom, human. You gave me hope." Daniel's throat tightened. He was not a king, not a chosen warrior, only a man with scars and stubborn will. Yet this girl, this princess, looked at him as though he was her savior. He knelt in front of her, resting his blade against the stone floor. "Soraya," he said firmly, "I don't care what curse they put on you. You are not a beast. You are not what they say. You are who you choose to be." Her golden eyes widened, shimmering with unshed tears for the first time in years. She felt seen not as a curse, not as a monster, but as herself. She whispered his name softly, Daniel, as though tasting it for the first time. Her voice carried a fragile warmth that pierced through the cold temple air. But the moment of quiet was shattered by the growing thunder of footsteps outside. The hunters were closing in, their shadows flickering against the glowing temple doors. Soraya's body trembled, her strength failing. Daniel stood, gripping his blade tightly. "They'll come with everything they have," he said, "but I won't let them take you." Soraya reached for his hand, her fingers soft and cold against his calloused skin. "Daniel, if you fight them all, you will die," she said desperately. He looked down at her, a fierce light in his eyes. "Then I'll die standing." Her lips trembled, a mixture of fear and admiration filling her face. "You're not like them," she whispered. "Not like my people. Not like anyone I've known." Suddenly, the temple walls flared with golden light. The carvings pulsed, glowing brighter, as if responding to her presence. Adya gasped, clutching her chest, her voice breaking. It's awakening. The bond to my bloodline. Daniel turned, eyes wide, as the entire temple seemed to breathe with life. The pillars shimmered, the air heavy with ancient power. Soraya's golden eyes burned brighter, her voice shaking as she spoke. This place remembers me. It remembers the air. The hunter's horns blared outside. But inside the temple, a different battle was beginning. Soraya clutched Daniel's hand tightly. If I survive this night, if the curse fully breaks, they will know. Longer hunt a beast, they will hunt a princess returned, and they will bring war. Daniel's grip tightened around her hand. Then let them come, he said fiercely, because they'll find I don't run from war. The temple doors shook violently as the hunters struck against them. Soraya's golden eyes glowed like fire, her body trembling as ancient power surged through her veins. Daniel lifted his blade, his stance firm. The night was about to shatter, and together they would face it. The temple doors thundered under the force of the hunters. Each strike shook the stone walls, sending dust raining from the ceiling. Daniel stood tall in the glow of the ancient carvings, his blade ready, his eyes burning with defiance. Beside him, Soraya sat trembling, her golden light flaring brighter. With every heartbeat, the doors cracked. And through the gaps, Daniel saw armored figures, their glowing weapons raised. The leader's voice boomed like thunder. Hand over the cursed one, human, and you may live. Daniel's grip tightened. On his blade, his voice sharp and steady. She's not cursed. She's your rightful princess, he shouted back. And I'll die before I let you take her. Laughter echoed from outside, cruel and sharp. Then die, fool. The leader roared, and with a final crash, the temple doors burst open. The hunters stormed inside, their glowing spears cutting through the dust and smoke. Daniel charged forward with a roar. Steel meeting energy in a clash that lit the hall with sparks. He fought like a storm, his blade flashing, his body moving with the instinct of countless battles. Every strike was met with force. Every block rattled his bones. The hunters surrounded him, their numbers overwhelming. But Daniel did not yield. His blade slashed through armor. His boots slammed against stone. His breath heavy but unbroken. Soraya watched, her golden eyes wide with fear and awe. She wanted to rise, to fight beside him, but her body shook under the weight of the curse. Still inside her, the temple carvings pulsed brighter. As if urging her to awaken, she pressed her hands against the glowing symbols. Whispering words in her ancient tongue, the air around her shimmered, golden sparks drifting into her skin. Daniel was thrown back as a spear struck his chest, the impact sending him crashing against a pillar. Pain seared through his ribs, blood spilling from his lip. The hunters closed in, ready to finish him. But before they could strike, Daniel pushed himself up. His blade raised again, his voice a growl. You'll have to kill me first. He spat, defiance blazing in his eyes. The hunters hesitated, for there was something in his stance. Something more than human, a will so fierce it felt unbreakable. One whispered, "Why does he fight like this?" For her, their leader snarled. "Because he is a fool who does not know fear," Soraya cried out, her voice echoing through the temple. "He fights because he is human." Golden light erupted from the carvings, filling the hall with blinding brilliance. The hunters staggered back, shielding their eyes. Daniel turned, stunned. As Soraya rose from the bench, her body trembling but radiant with power. The curse cracked within her, golden fire searing through the chains that still lingered in her soul. Her silver hair lifted in the light, her golden eyes blazing with strength. She stepped forward, her voice steady despite her weak frame. "You call me cursed, but I am your true heir." She declared. The hunters froze. Their weapons trembling in their hands, her presence was undeniable. The temple itself answering her call, Daniel stood at her side. Bloodied but unbowed, his blade steady. "Princess or not," he said firmly. "She's under my protection." Soraya glanced at him, her lips parting in a faint smile, a warmth shining through the storm of her power. The hunter's leader roared in rage, charging forward with a glowing spear. Daniel met him head-on, steel against light. Their clash shaking the hall, the battle. Raged, hunters swarming like wolves, Daniel fought with everything he had, his body breaking but his spirit unyielding. Soraya lifted her hands, golden light streaming from her palms. The carvings in the walls answered, beams of light firing outward, striking the hunters and throwing them back. Her voice rang like thunder. "You cannot chain me anymore." The hunters faltered, fear creeping into their ranks. Some shouted, "The curse is breaking." Others whispered, "The air has returned." Their leader pressed harder, his spear crackling with dark energy. Daniel's arms shook under the weight of the clash, his knees buckling. But when he felt Soraya's light at his back, warmth filling the hall, strength surged through him. With a final roar, he drove his blade upward, shattering the leader's weapon in a burst of sparks. The hunters stumbled back, their courage breaking. They stared at the glowing princess and the bloodied human standing together. The leader fell to his knees, his weapon shattered, his eyes wide with disbelief. "This is impossible," he muttered. "The curse should have consumed her." Soraya stepped forward, golden fire burning in her gaze. "It would have," she said softly. If not for him, her eyes turned to Daniel, filled with a light deeper than power, a bond forged in pain and defiance. The hunters lowered their weapons, some fleeing, others frozen in fear. The hall was silent again, save for Daniel's ragged breaths and Soraya's steady glow. Daniel sank to one knee, his blade slipping from his grasp. Blood dripped from his wounds, but his eyes stayed fixed on her. Soraya rushed to his side, her hands glowing as she tried to heal him. "Stay with me," she whispered desperately. "You cannot fall, not now." Daniel gave a faint smile, his voice hoarse but strong. "I told you, Soraya, I don't run, I stand." The temple pulsed once more, golden light surrounding them both. The curse was breaking, the air was awakening, and the human had proven himself unyielding. The temple glowed like a sun in the dark mountains. Golden light poured from the carvings, washing away the shadows. Daniel knelt on the cold stone, his body broken, blood dripping from wounds, yet his eyes still fierce. Beside him, Soraya shone, brighter than ever, her silver hair flowing in the light, her golden eyes burning with fire that could no longer be chained. The hunters who remained stumbled back in fear, their weapons trembling in their hands. They had called her cursed, a beast to be destroyed. But now they saw her true form, a princess reborn, a power that the curse could not silence. The leader of the hunters, his armor cracked and weapon broken, stared at her with disbelief. "This cannot be," he growled. "The curse was eternal. It should have consumed you." Soraya stepped forward, her light illuminating every corner of the hall. Her voice carried the weight of both sorrow and strength. "It would have consumed me," she said, "but he broke my chains. He stood when none of you would. His courage gave me back what you tried to steal." She pointed toward Daniel, bloodied but unyielding. The hunter's eyes followed her hand, and for the first time, they saw not just a human, but something far greater, a man who refused to bend. Daniel tried to rise, his body trembling. Soraya rushed to his side, kneeling beside him, her hands glowing as golden energy poured into his wounds. Her touch burned with warmth, sealing torn flesh and calming his pain. "Stay with me," she whispered. "You are not done yet." Daniel met her eyes, a faint smile on his lips. "I told you, I don't fall easy, he muttered, his voice hoarse but steady. The temple shook, the light growing stronger, the very walls alive with ancient power. The hunters cried out, some dropping their weapons and fleeing into the night. Others fell to their knees, unable to look at the light of their true heir. Soraya rose to her full height, standing tall and radiant, her curse burning away like smoke in the wind. Her voice rang out, echoing through the temple and across the mountains. I am Soraya, daughter of the true line, heir to the throne you betrayed. The beast is gone, the curse is broken, and I will never bow to your lies again. The hunter's leader stumbled back, his face pale under the broken helmet. No, he whispered. We buried your name, we erased your blood, you cannot return. Soraya's golden eyes narrowed, her voice steady. You cannot erase truth, she said, and you cannot kill hope. She extended her hand, golden light flaring. Outward, the broken chains on the floor rose into the air, melting into sparks, vanishing forever. Her body glowed brighter, her form no longer weak and trembling, but strong and untouchable. Daniel shielded his eyes against the brilliance, but in his heart, he felt pride. He had freed not a beast, but a queen waiting to be reborn. The hunters, overwhelmed by the sight, fled into the forest, their horns silenced, their courage broken. Only silence remained in the temple. Broken by Daniel's ragged breathing, Soraya turned to him, her glow dimming gently as she knelt at his side again. Her hand cupped his cheek, her golden eyes soft. You gave me back my life, she whispered. When all others tried to take it, Daniel let out a weak laugh, wincing at the pain in his ribs. I thought I was freeing a beast, he said. Turns out I freed something far more dangerous. Her lips curved into a soft smile. Dangerous for them, maybe, but for me. You are hope. She pressed her forehead against his, her tears falling onto his skin in chains. I prayed for someone to see me. Not the curse, not the beast, but me. And it was you. Daniel's chest tightened at her words. He had fought battles for survival, for honor, for duty, but never for something like this. Looking into her eyes, he realized this fight had been more than survival. It was the beginning of something greater, a bond forged in defiance and fire. Soraya rose again, helping Daniel to his feet. The temple's glow began to fade, leaving only the faint shimmer of light within her. Outside, the mountains were silent, the hunters gone for now. But both of them knew this was not the end. The council, the betrayers, the enemies of Soraya's bloodline would not stop her. Return meant war, and the human beside her would be marked as her shield. Her warrior, her chosen. Daniel leaned on his blade, his body aching but his spirit fierce. So what now? He asked, his voice low. Soraya's golden eyes shone with both sorrow and determination. Now we prepare, she said, because they will come again. And this time, they will bring armies, but they will not face me alone. She turned to him, her silver hair flowing. In the night wind, her face both regal and tender. They will face us. Daniel felt a rare smile cross his lips, tired but proud. Then let them come, he said, his voice carrying into the night. Together, they stepped out of the temple. The dawn rising over the mountains. The beast was gone, the curse broken, the princess reborn, and the human who freed her stood at her side. The unknown future stretched before them, filled with danger, fire, and hope. But one truth was unshakable: Soraya and Daniel now belonged to each other, and nothing in the stars could break that bond.